Hello, this is program number 3 in our series on Santeria. What do you know about it? And the program is going to be focused now on the impact that the Roman Catholic Church had on the Yoruba religion as it was brought over from West Africa by the slave traders. And all of a sudden, these people from these tribes along the Niger River and mostly Nigeria and Togo, encountered in the New World. They found a place already populated by a religious system, primarily the colonists from Spain, but some from France as well. And so they had their system, and they found another people with another system. And particularly the Roman Catholic Church was, in Spain and France were both, there, that was under that religious system. They began to impact the Yoruba religion, and it was almost like a perfect setup in a lot of ways. There was kind of like a natural blending. It was fairly simple. The practice of the Yoruba people were magical rites that were not endorsed by the Roman Catholic Church, that involved all kinds of things that were essentially antithetical to the Roman Catholic Church. So they had to keep things secret. But what they did is they kind of enfolded it in. They adopted certain names and practices into the Yoruba religion that disguised it and they hid it. But there were some elements of the Roman Catholic Church that were perfect for this kind of thing to take place. And that's what the subject is going to be. The impact of the Roman Catholic Church on what became Santeria. One, the priesthood. They obtained power, if you will, based upon their ordination, an ordination that supposedly went back to Peter. All through those long centuries, hands being laid on, word said that transferred power one to another. Well, you see that in, for example, the making of holy water, regular old water out of a stream or out of a tap or whatever, all of a sudden took on magical practices and was called holy water. Consider in the Eucharist, the bread becomes the body of Christ. The wine becomes the blood of Christ, all through a ceremony conducted by an ordained priest. Now, this was very much right along the line of material that was already understood by the Yoruba priests. Secondly, the saints, the Orishas of the Yoruba people essentially became saints. This synchronization, this folding in. The Orishas were given the names of Catholic saints. Well, the Catholic saints were worshipped. They were prayed for. They were looked to for protection and help, like the Virgin Mary, St. Jude, St. Joseph, etc., etc. All the saints would be prayed to. This had evolved over the centuries in the history of the Roman Catholic Church. And so now you had invested in these saints the power to hear and the power to do and to act. That worked perfectly into the placating of the Orishas to get them to act for you. Thirdly, the Church's concept of the immortal soul, a soul that left the body after death, which was a concept that came into the Church in the 5th, 6th, 7th centuries, that was borrowed from Platonism, the Neoplatonic revival at that particular time, which had the idea of a soul, actually a soul that pre-existed. Augustine impacted that notion a little bit and said, no, the soul did not pre-exist, but he did uphold, because he adhered a great deal to Platonic thought, still maintained the idea of the soul. Well, this worked out perfectly for ancestor worship among the Santerians. The dead had souls that survived them, and they could come and invade or possess a person on earth and give guidance and protection and so on. So the reincarnation concept, I mean, the immortality of the soul worked in perfect to the Santeria's doctrine of the reincarnation of the soul. Fourth and last, the concept of the Mass, because actually what is the Mass but a sacrifice, a routine, everyday, at least once a week sacrifice, a reenactment of the crucifixion of Jesus. And of course, the sacrifice of animals is ubiquitous and absolutely integral to the concept of Santeria, because that is where through the sacrifice the Orisha is placated, and then from the Orisha they give the power, or the Ashi, to the worshiper. So in a real sense, the Yoruba people were able to very easily incorporate their religion into the system of religion they found in the New World. Now, let it be noted that the Roman Catholic Church does not endorse Santeria, and largely attempted to refute it, and does to this day. But Santeria became so influential that in some places, and to this day, there was a deliberate synchronization of the two systems. This is more clearly seen in countries like Cuba and Brazil. Lastly, it's also characteristic of Santerians to be baptized into the Catholic Church, and they become very faithful members, very fervent worshipers in the local Catholic churches. This has changed somewhat now that Jewish people have begun to practice Santeria, and because they would have objected to any kind of Christian baptism, but they were also, if they had contact with the esoteric arm of Judaism, the Kabbalah, they found some connections with Santeria. And so there has been numbers of Jewish people who have been flowing into Santeria. Well, that is the end of part 3. So long.